Ladies and gentlemen, I ordered a pet moth online. That's right, a pet moth. And now I'm going to reveal it to you. It just arrived. Oh my god. Look at it. What a cutie. Her name is Daisy. So how do we take care of Daisy? According to the instruction manual, these moths like going on romantic dates. This one is for you. This one is for me. Oh, cheers. You and me are going to have a very good night together, I think. Ah, this is the brand that you love, right? She's such a connoisseur. Not easy to please this woman. Has to be some quality stuff. Oops! Oh no, I spilled. You're not from here, are you, beautiful? Are you single? Married? Divorced? Oh, so interesting. Really? Oh, me too. Ha! Cheers! My town doesn't have such beautiful ladies as you. That's how I know that you're from another place. Daisy is also much wilder than she looks. Did you know she is a natural at skating? Clearly, Daisy is very famous. Let's ask her what she thinks of all this internet fame. Daisy, how does it feel to get so much views on YouTube being a moth? Do you have anything to say to your fans right now?
I love being on the channel of Bart Coppens. He is a really attractive and knowledgeable YouTuber. But I'm a little bit disappointed. I was promised to star on the channel of Insect House. He is a much smarter and more competent entomologist than Bart Coppens.
It's time to grow up and clean after yourself. They grow up so fast, don't they? I'll have empty nest syndrome soon. After a long day, Daisy is tired. Hush, little baby, now it's time to finally close your eyes and sleep. Metaphorically, since you don't have eyelids. Alright, enough silliness. What's really going on here in this video? Turns out that we're in a MothCycles episode right now, my web series in which we breed moths together. Let's explain. Ladies and gentlemen. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever worn products made from 100% real, natural silk? Well, then I have good news. You are probably rich. Because the stuff is expensive. Here around my neck I have about $50 worth of real silk. But do you know where the stuff comes from? And how it's made? Many people don't actually know. Well, I'm gonna show you. it comes from these guys. Believe it or not. But these pale looking little worms are real, actual silkworms. The same silkworms of a silk moth that are used to produce clothing, fabrics and anything made of pure, raw, natural silk. It's not a human product. These animals do all the work. It's pretty crazy. And today I am going to show you how we breed the actual real silkworm, Bombyx mori, the Mulberry silk moth, in this new episode of MothCycles. Yay! Let's get started. Guess what I have in my refrigerator? Hibernating eggs of the original silkworm, Bombyx mori. After cooling them for 3 months, they are ready to warm up. You may not be aware, but yes, the eggs of the mulberry silkworm need to hibernate. They usually cannot hatch before being refrigerated or kept cold for several months, which is why they were in the fridge in the beginning of this video. 3 weeks later, I noticed there was a little baby boom going on, everything going as expected. This is the first instar of the mulberry silk moth. The babies at this point are just very tiny and black. So this species, which I was raising in the middle of winter by the way, and I had absolutely no leaves to feed them, which is why I used artificial diet. What am I unpacking here? It's artificial diet. It's powder. And when I add water to the powder, it becomes food for the caterpillars to eat. Interesting, huh? Technology. Artificial diet is simple. First you need some hot water, and in this case I just use my tea boiler. And next I add some of the artificial diet into a container. The artificial diet is powder, but you do have to add hot water as well. Generally, the water to powder ratio is about 50-50, although I do not use any exact measures and do it based on my intuition. The consistency should be somewhat like dough, somewhat moist and malleable, but not like completely liquid. The reason to use boiling water is to kill off any potential microorganisms like viruses, fungi or bacteria that could grow in the artificial caterpillar diet. Sterile is always better. The biggest killer of caterpillars in captivity are diseases and infections after all. After that, I scoop some of the caterpillar food into a container with small breathing holes in it. Make sure the holes are not big enough for the caterpillars to fit through. That means they could escape, which is bad. The idea of artificial diet may sound weird to some people watching this video, but it's honestly not as alien as you imagine. Actually, artificial diet for many species exists. If you are good with chemistry, you can even develop it yourself. And in no time, the babies will usually gather on top of it. Important for newborn caterpillars is not to make the texture too watery. They can get stuck if it's too watery. This is what their container looked like up close, if you want to copy my method. Alright, so let's check on how they are doing a few days later then. They seem to be doing well, don't you agree? I was starting to get the feeling, however, that I should soon move them to a bigger container. I think that by now they were all around instar number 2 or even 3. But many caterpillars inside a small container does not spark joy and is a nice invitation for diseases and infections. I wanted to upgrade them. Ladies and gentlemen, the silkworms are growing excellently, and we had, I think it's about 0 losses so far. Zero losses. That is incredible. They are growing really well on this artificial diet, and I'm preparing their first bigger container which I'm going to release them in, because I'm going to upgrade them from the small to the big box. One thing though, one tip for myself is to control the amount of food that I give them. I have the feeling I am feeding them an excessive amount of food, which is a waste of the artificial diet. It's my first time doing this, so I don't know the good proportions. Thankfully we don't have losses, but it's also about finances. The stuff is expensive. And if you overfeed, give them more diet than is needed, then of course you risk running out of food. So once again, maybe this is what I'm already doing right now is already too much, actually. But we will see. I'm going to move all the larvae into this big box and see what happens. I'll just use this paintbrush, scoop them up one by one. Yes, this is going to take a lot of time for so many caterpillars. Scoop them up with the paintbrush and here put them at their new food. There you go. Let's skip this segment, it's going to take a very long amount of time. There you go, my beautiful babies. There you go. Yes. See if you like the big box. Woohoo! Ah yeah. It's caterpillar scooping time. Hey, there you go. Now I did make one small mistake here because it's my first time breeding this species. You see, it wasn't very smart of me to place paper towels at the bottom. It's not a huge issue, but just something rather inconvenient. The dry towels would suck out all the moisture out of the diet faster and dehydrate it. And it also would make them soggy, which isn't great. The rest of the setup is honestly fine, however, but in the future I would not use paper tissue. The caterpillars didn't seem to care much about it, however. It was more inconvenient for me myself, but our livestock was growing well, I guess. It's funny to see how the caterpillars are already making threads of silk sometimes. After a while, the caterpillars really had a growth spurt. In instar 3 and later 4, they attained bigger size exponentially. And while I was pleased to see the results, it did mean that yes, eventually I was going to have to think about giving them more space to live in. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time once again to upgrade the container. That doesn't rhyme, and I'm a terrible singer and I have a hole in my sock. Anyway, this is their new home. I have decided this stuff is a bit thinner than I usually make it. But I guess that's because I'm keeping them really dry now. It's winter. Because of the cold air. Humidity is very low, the air is dry. So by making their food extra mushy, they're going to have enough moisture to drink. This food will also dry out pretty fast. So while it looks like diarrhea right now, I know that doesn't sound tasty, but while it looks like that right now, it's gonna dry up and be more like a cake pretty soon. As you can see, the caterpillars are doing pretty well. They are waiting for their new home. Now I'm gonna use my fingers for this. Don't worry, I will disinfect the container after, so the bacteria from my hands will not remain on them. Now this I'm going to skip because I have to do this with a few hundred larvas. That's not really epic content to see me fish them out like that, but yeah, let's skip ahead. Ta-da! There we go. Skip time a little bit. Skip time, skip time once again. Oh no, that joke is starting to get a bit boring. There you go. Some beautiful Silkmoth larvae feeding on some artificial food I prepare for them. Incredible stuff. Only on my channel, of course. Yay! I think most of these are in star number 4 right now, but I think we actually have one in the final instar. They have 5 developmental stages in total as far as I know. And after the 5th one they should start spinning the cocoon. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about disinfecting your caterpillars. Is it necessary? In my opinion, no, it is not necessary by default. But it does help if you breed many of them together. And as you can see, they are kind of crowded. I don't know how many caterpillars there are in this little plastic box, but it's sure a lot. And I just use my filthy human hands to touch them. So what I use is bleach. Be very careful with bleach. Don't get it in your eyes, don't get it in your mouth, don't even get it on your clothes, because it can ruin your clothes. Now it's important to only add a very little bleach, less than 1/5 of the container. There you go. Oof, it smells very strongly. To smell the chlorine. There you go. For the rest of it, we just kind of use water. So it's kind of like a bleach and water solution. There you go. Be careful with this stuff. In low concentration, it will not kill the caterpillars. In fact, if properly diluted, it's as harmless for insects. Believe it or not. Bleach sounds like dangerous stuff, but insects have an exoskeleton, and if it's diluted, it doesn't bother them. But the caterpillars will be bothered by it. There you go. And this is a sterilizing effect. It kills the bacteria and fungi. So this is me disinfecting my caterpillars on YouTube. It's a rare video because disinfection, behind the scenes I do it sometimes, but not often. It looks very wet, but in an open container it will evaporate pretty soon. And this helps to sterilize the caterpillars, because I touch them with my fingers. Helps to sterilize the container and stops mold from growing. That's an advantage. Does my method even work? Well, the results speak for themselves. Of course, Bombyx mori is an absolute beginner species, but it's still nice to be successful the first time I ever tried. So I did notice variation in size, but that's also because they vary in age, as some eggs hatch weeks later than the first ones. Have you ever raised this species, and do you have tips? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to know the method that other moth breeders use. Important for this species is that you can replace the food. Replace it before it dries out or grows mold on it. Caterpillars can become sick from eating old food. It seems that every 2 to 4 days it's best to give them fresh diet. And gradually their size started really to increase fast. Alright, to protect them from disease, it's time for their chlorination. Bleach spray. Oh, it's a shitty spray bottle, I should buy a new one. Breeding is so expensive, your equipment just keeps breaking. This should be enough. In an open container like this it will evaporate in no time. This winter is very dry. The chlorine will remove harmful fungi and bacteria. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, most of the caterpillars, well, a lot of them are reaching final instar. Just look at this. Do you mind if I pick you up? Sorry, my dude. Sorry, my dude. Well, ladies and gentlemen. Some of these caterpillars are growing to decent sizes. And I don't know what the full size is going to be before they pupate, cause like I said, often it's my first time raising the original Silkmoth, Bombyx mori. But I do notice that the size of all the caterpillars is still not homogeneous. I mean, these caterpillars, the big ones I just showed on my hand, are in star number 5. But if we look at the caterpillars here, let's just zoom in. Hope the camera can zoom in. Now, if you have a pair of functioning eyes, you'll notice that still some of them here compare the big one here to the smaller ones, and some of them are 1 or 2 instars behind. Take this one here for example, and this is a really small one. And I wonder if the small ones will actually make it to moths. It could be an indication that they are not growing perfectly synchronized. Some of them could be weaker. Is it food competition? I don't know, is it? I don't think so, they have abundant food. I should probably remove the old food a bit for them. But they have enough food. So maybe it's genetic, I don't know. It's a terrible stock, or maybe it's a newbie mistake, because it's my first time raising these. I do have to say, the caterpillars are very likable, very charming. Just look at that. I can't believe this is my first time raising the original Silkmoth. Look at those color patterns. Each of them is a little bit different. Can you see it? Very nice. Real Mulberry silkworms. So cute. I hope I can produce a lot of moths out of this. Come here, they're cuties. They're so sweet. So this is going to be difficult to read for some people, because the thing is damn transparent. But I'm going to be here to help you. Let's see. This one is 6, almost 7 centimeters. That's not bad. Really? Well. Would you take a look at that? For size reference, let me place my hand in here. Now, this species is ridiculously easy to breed. Even your grandmother can probably breed these. Despite that, I am pleased with my result, it being my first try ever. It's the first time I am raising these dudes, and the first time is always when you have the highest chance of failure, because this hobby is surely a lot of trial and error, and if you have the first trial, you have the highest chance of error, even if the species is easy. Wow, look at that, and they're actually quite big. As we just recently measured, we had some sizes up to 7 centimeters, and I'm wondering if they can be even bigger. Because these dudes are very crowded in the same container. They are competing over the same type of food every day. If you raise them individually with more space, maybe, just maybe, they have the potential of being even bigger. It depends how much they care about being overcrowded. Very good result. Unfortunately, I do have some larvae like this one and like this one, who are still ridiculously small after all this time. Yeah, I don't think these very tiny ones are going to make it, to be honest. These caterpillars are all about the same age, so I think the very smaller ones must be a little bit genetically inferior, I guess, if that's a way to describe it. Wow. They're so pure white. It's pretty crazy. Probably the whitest caterpillars I ever raised. Most of the caterpillars on my channel are green. So, of course, we raised them in many colors. We raised red ones, we raised orange ones, even blue ones. I think I raised the whole rainbow, but not white. So, pretty crazy. They're really fascinating little animals, if you ask me. I didn't expect to enjoy the experience this much, because it was like, Bombyx mori is just a newbie species, that's not exciting. It's not a challenge for me, but I changed my mind. It's pretty cool to see them grow. It's pretty cool to raise domesticated species. Now these toilet rolls, they are still empty, but it's recommended to keep some in there with the final instar. Because when they want to make cocoons, they prefer to do it inside the paper rolls. Let's see if we can get some zoom. Amazing, very amazing. Real silkworms. Super. I hope all of them can make it to moths. That would make me very happy. Last but not least, it's time for the chlorination. Don't do too much. Chlorine is toxic. It's toxic in high amounts. Smells like a swimming pool. I firmly believe that disinfecting with chlorine keeps the microorganisms out during mouse rearing. And the result speaks for itself. They're still alive. So yep, that's almost fully grown. Anytime now. This species is one of the cutest I've raised, by the way. Something about the larva is just adorable to me personally. Ladies and gentlemen, today I treated myself to one of my favorite drinks because I have reason to celebrate. Some of you may say, what, Monster Energy is disgusting. Well, I have terrible taste because, let's be honest, I'm a terrible human being. So that fits. But what is there to celebrate? Wow, did I really just put it in my video? What the heck? The attention is making my personality a bit weirder. Anyway, I have something to celebrate today. So, check out our silkworms. They're growing pretty well, right? Let me show you an impression. Without causing an avalanche. You do notice how I added these toilet rolls, right? Well, let me take one out for you. And look what's inside. Oh, see that? It's hard to see. But inside here there is a caterpillar. Let me focus the camera if it can. Spinning a cocoon. See? It's hard to see because the inside of the toilet roll is dark. But this is going to be officially our first cocoon. This larva is spinning silk. Tomorrow there will be a beautiful silk cocoon. And it means the rearing project is nearing the finish line. Now, one question is, why do they like making cocoons in toilet rolls? Well, even though these animals are domesticated, like cows and chickens and sheep, they still have some of their wild instincts. And the instinct of a moth when it makes a cocoon is to make a cocoon in a sheltered and safe place. In the cocoon stage, the animals are very vulnerable. A cocoon is a cocoon cannot move, it cannot walk, it just sits there. So a cocoon cannot defend itself from predators and enemies whatsoever. So the place where it chooses to make a cocoon is really crucial to its survival. And still they have the instinct to spin cocoons in places where they feel safe. Sheltered in nature, moths like to spin cocoons, for example, in tree leaves, on tree bark, sometimes even on the floor, on moss, stuff like that. And a paper toilet roll, it has a perfect shape, it's round, the inside is dark, they feel protected, they feel sheltered. Last but not least, a cocoon is also a construction. It has to be supported by silk. And the paper toilet rolls give them something to support their cocoons, really. The strings have to be attached somewhere. They prefer to hang their cocoons like that and not just make one randomly on the floor. So, see that? Ta-da! We are going to have our first cocoon. And that's great news, because that means my first silkworm rearing project may turn out to be successful. Obviously, this is a real easy species to breed for any beginner. But it's still my first time ever. So they say never count your chickens before they hatch. I don't want to be an arrogant YouTuber and say, well, I'm experienced. I'm an experienced breeder, so I'm gonna get every species right. Especially the easy ones. No, sometimes I fail with easy species too. So it's pretty cool, man. Let's wait for tomorrow and see if the cocoon will turn out to be nice. Well, believe it or not, but this caterpillar is spinning a cocoon. Do you see the web? That's actually silk. It's constructing a cocoon made from silk. Our first cocoon ever. One day later, it looks like this. Amazing, no? The quality of the silk is incredible. Commercial grade silk. It's important to not immediately harvest the cocoon, but just give the caterpillars a few days extra to pupate before immediately ripping it off the surface. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to have a look at our first cocoons and see the best a Silkmoth has to offer us. Careful now. Careful now, I'm just gonna use my fingers. Wait, let's do this one first. Oh wow. Oh wow. Would you look at that? Wow. It's so soft and warm. I assure you that this cocoon looks just as soft as it looks right now on YouTube. The silk is of phenomenal quality. And it's farmed by me, Bart Coppens. Hey, fashion designers out there, when is one of you going to make a dress out of Bart Coppens silk? Now that's exclusive, huh? Wow, I am impressed. And from this, in a few weeks, a moth shall appear. It's so fascinating. Look at how beautiful the cocoon is. Really nice. Now I have a second cocoon in here, but the second cocoon, have to be more careful, it's still fresher, so it's still softer. There you go, wow. Amazing. Amazing. Real Silkmoth silk. Homegrown. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the cocoons. I have to probably hatch them somewhere. I'll find a container in a minute. But this is a nice moment. From that day and beyond, I was practically harvesting cocoons each day, and the amount I had was rapidly growing. It seems that with this cocoon production, my attempts at raising the original silkworm, Bombyx mori, have done quite well. From my understanding, these cocoons should be pretty easy to hatch at room temperature in an open container, so I will. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's hard to believe that me, Bart Coppens, is actually breeding the original Silkmoth in my own home. Even the word Silkmoth itself, a word I have said so many times, originates from these animals. They are the original Silkmoth, and I just cleaned some of their container, which is why I'm holding them. There you go. Wow. And many of them are starting to cocoon, so it's not very long before all of them are finally moths. Whee! Amazing. Look at that. It's crazy how big they've gotten. I really have a lot of them too. Welcome back to silk farming with Bart Coppens, and the caterpillars are massively starting to pupate now. I've even gone as far as to add like these egg cartons in here. It seems to be working because we already see some cocoons here in the egg cartons. Can you see it? On the underside, there's some caterpillars making cocoons as well. So the amount of cocooning going on right now is pretty insane. Here we see more of them making cocoons. There you go. And here I have some other rolls with finished cocoons in them, so I'm just gonna take them out. This time I don't think I'm going to use that silly tool, because that stupid thing caused me to drop the cocoons on the ground. There you go. There you go, even more. Wow, look at that. This is pretty crazy. So many silk cocoons. And like I said, this is top quality silk, like the expensive silk that you buy a I don't know what silk products do you use? Like a shawl maybe? It's pretty expensive stuff, man, and I'm just farming it here. One of the reasons it's so expensive is it takes a lot of cocoons just to make one t-shirt. So I should look up the exact number, but you need a few thousand cocoons at least to make like a shawl or something. So, there you go. Wow, pretty incredible. Oh my god, ladies and gentlemen.
Look,
oh my god, look at that. It's
and now the
so
waiting
soft.
game begins.
I wish I could share it with you. It feels
The
so
moths
great.
came out of
It's
the
so
cocoons
pure
really
and
fast,
white.
in a matter of weeks.
Top quality
But for that
stuff.
I was honestly glad, because I was
Wow.
eager to see them.
Look at that. I am a happy farmer today. Look at that. So ladies and gentlemen, right now I am still waiting for the first rich fashion designer or fashion brand to contact me and say, you know what we need? We need Bart Coppens silk. Let's make a dress out of Bart Coppens silk. Now you may wonder, what makes my silk different from anybody else's silk? Well, the answer is nothing. It's basically the same. But hey, I'm the sexy moth king himself, you know? Imagine having a dress made by real Bart Coppens silk, the famous visionary YouTuber himself. That's right, that's right. Plus, I care more about my animals than most of the big companies who are farming silk. That being said, I'm mostly joking. So, I'm not that arrogant as I sound, ladies and gentlemen. I'm being a little bit ironic. But what I do like is like, wow, this is a very good product. I did a lot of effort, and the fact that I'm able to produce my own silk is fascinating, you know? So give them a lot of care, attention, as you could see in this video. And it paid off. Look at that, it's a good production, huh? And many of them are still cocooning. And it feels great. YouTube's only silk farmer. Look at that. Incredible, no? Wow. So if we wait a few weeks, we are going to see the moths. They can be in an open container like this, because the moths actually cannot fly. And they don't have functional wings, so they don't need to climb up or hang to inflate their wings. Eventually this container is just going to be full of moths. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever wondered what the pupa of Bombyx mori looks like? I do.
That's why I'm going to take a look in one of my cocoons. There you go. As some of you know, what we find inside a cocoon is called a pupa. And the pupa is more or less the living animal itself. So there you go. There you have it. The pupa of Bombyx mori. It's a bit orange, it is thick, and it looks healthy, so I'm happy. There you go. It's official. The pupa of Bombyx mori. Wow. What to do with so much silk, ladies and gentlemen? I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. You can use them to make a smiley face. You can use them to make a beautiful flower. You can use them to make a butterfly. You can use them to make a mushroom. You can use them to make the sun. Whoa, I'm feeling warm already. But even better, you can use them to make moths. So we just collect them, and I'm really eager for the moths to come out. I don't know how long it's going to last, to be honest, but I'm very, very eager to see my first silk moths. Really, these are great so far. They have been great. Have to be careful, cocoons are a bit sticky. There you go. Whoa, look, all those cocoons. And now the waiting game begins. Surprisingly, the moths came out of the cocoons really fast, in a matter of weeks. But for that I was honestly glad, because I was eager to see them. Ladies and gentlemen, I was taking care of my larvae and cocoons, and guess what I saw? I found a pair of Bombyx mori, so finally we can take a look at the moths. Let's gently pick them up and film them for a second. Yep. Oh wow. Can you guys see this? This is my first time seeing Bombyx mori. Oh wait, it's actually not true. I've seen them in Cambodia when I was working there, when I was researching moths in Asia. Let's say this is the first time I'm breeding Bombyx mori, and it's a long time since I've seen them though. They're really fascinating animals, and as I said many times in this video, they are one of the few completely domesticated insects who are fully domesticated by humans. So that's very interesting. That's not a species I have on my channel very often. And their shape and their color is just so different from all the other moths that I've raised before. Their morphology is so interesting. They have these reduced wings. Their wings are also kind of weak, soft. Their wing muscles are reduced. They cannot generate lift. Their wings are too small to fly anyways. They have big bodies, reduced antennae. Not to mention the loss of color. These moths have completely lost all their color in captivity. And I guess the evolutionary principle of use it or lose it applies here. Things such as colors or their ability to fly are useless in captivity. Especially if you don't need camouflage for survival. Or if you don't need to travel very far to find a partner because they are born in captivity and don't need to fly for miles. They are just born together in a plastic box like this. And a few millennia of people breeding them in captivity has led to them losing these traits. So from an evolutionary perspective, they are very interesting. Oh wow, and they are so cute, it's unbelievable. Just look at that little face here. Aw, you cutie. You cutie. Yes, you are. You are a freaking cutie. Wow. Bombyx mori, the Mulberry silkworm. You saw it on my channel, ladies and gentlemen. My mission on my YouTube channel is to document the life cycles of as many interesting species as I can, really. And this here is the female, the big and fat one with the big abdomen. The smaller one is the male. And what's funny is I was checking them this morning and they were already mating. I haven't actually seen the moths be single at any point. I just woke up and there was already one mating pair. That's sort of crazy. What's also crazy is that not all my caterpillars are finished yet. Here I still have some caterpillars, some of the last caterpillars who are making cocoons. So we have the first moths coming out of the cocoons. Well, some of the slowest caterpillars are still busy making their cocoons. So now we can do something really interesting. And that is to show you a whole life cycle here. This is cool. Here it is, on the palm of my hand. We have caterpillars. We have cocoons. And we have moths, see? This is the entire life cycle of this insect. In one small area. That's not something you see very often. See? It's funny how small the moths are compared to their big caterpillars. I wonder if they really lose that much weight in silk production. Maybe it is. Look at that. Caterpillars, cocoons and moths. The whole life cycle in the palm of my hand. How fascinating. This is really cool. I'm very happy because it was my first time ever in my life raising the Bombyx mori, and my first attempt was immediately successful. Of course, it's a beginner species and I'm a very experienced breeder when it comes to moths. But still, I am not that arrogant to assume everything I do will go right the first time, despite my self-described experience. Wow. Let's just take them off for a second. I'm not really concerned about disturbing them. And they are just so small and so cute. Look at how soft they are and how small they are. So nice. I'm really happy with the result, ladies and gentlemen. Another life cycle is about to be completed successfully. Oh wow, I love it. So soft. No. Okay, let's put you guys back. I'm excited to see how many of these are going to pop out soon. As you can see, we have quite a lot of cocoons. I haven't counted the exact amount, but if I just estimate it without counting, I would say that this is about maybe 40 cocoons or something like that. Yeah, I would say about 40 maybe even 50. So that's quite fascinating. Now, one thing that sucks is that some of my caterpillars here have started to die. This one is dead, for example. Dead caterpillar. Why is that? Well, the caterpillars you see in here are really just the very last caterpillars of my whole brood. And you should imagine that all of these are kind of brothers and sisters. And as you can see, some of their brothers and sisters are already moths. But the rest, some of the slowest ones, are still caterpillars. So what's in this box are the slowest individuals. And typically, the slowest individuals are not the most healthy individuals. If you are a breeder of moths, it's normal for many of your caterpillars to make cocoons. But some caterpillars that they stay left behind. And some of those don't survive. Here, another dead one. Is dead. Better throw it away soon. And that's really because the weakest individuals are the ones who stay behind. And making a cocoon, it requires a lot of energy. The caterpillar, it uses a lot of energy, a lot of its proteins to make these cocoons. See, making something like this, it takes a lot of strength. And only healthy caterpillars will become the moths. And as you can see, many of them are healthy and many of them will become moths. But there's also always going to be a few deaths at the end if you breed a lot of insects. It's normal, it's completely normal. I'm not really concerned about some of the late ones.
More and more moths are hatching every day. Do you like them, guys? Let me know in the comments. I've raised many moths in my life, hundreds of species, but these are still pretty unusual to me, because they cannot fly and have reduced wings, and you can just keep them in an open container. Pairings are super straightforward, they just do it automatically. And yes, the moths look exactly as cute and as soft as they look. Genuinely, they do. As far as cuteness goes, these dudes are the absolute winners. Now these moths cannot fly, so it's pretty easy to keep them. Individuals who have mated, I just place them in an open container like this. Just put some of the cocoons on the floor, I guess, so they can walk over their own silk. Here, another cocoon for you guys. There you go.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen. More and more Bombyx mori are starting to come out every day. Take a look. Some of them have even started to lay eggs here on their silken cocoons. Just take a minute to admire them. And the really cool markings on their wings. It's quite cool. You see that? I love it. So here we have the container with the cocoons. Many of them are still going to hatch, as you can see. The moths who have come out of the cocoons, I put them in this container where they can breed. They really don't need much. They will breed literally anywhere, even in a small container like this. And here they can just walk around over the silk. It's pretty awesome, man. I have to say they're really cute. Probably the cutest species I erased so far. Wow, pretty awesome. Let's wait for more of them to come out, I guess.
Like a lot of moth species though, these moths don't live very long at all. They don't have functional mouth parts, so they are unable to feed and sustain themselves. They more or less run out of energy, about after 2 weeks or less. They more or less just are doomed to starve. They are mostly just alive to mate, lay eggs, and then die. As morbid as that sounds, it is the reality of the situation. It's time to collect some of the eggs, because I let the moths basically live on top of their cocoons. They've laid a lot of their eggs on top of the silk. So what am I going to do with these eggs in the first place, you probably wonder? Well, I'm gonna sell them to customers. Some of you are probably wondering, what? Bart Coppens, he sells eggs online? Actually, from time to time I do. I rarely sell publicly in the open, because I'm a YouTuber with a lot of followers. And whenever I post like an ad for like, let's say I'm trying to sell 40 eggs or 100 eggs, then I will get like 200 emails for them. And I know, that's a weird thing to complain about. Who doesn't want to have more customers than he has goods to sell? But truth is that for me it's actually kind of stressful that I have to turn many people down. Imagine that you are a seller, you're a salesman, and you want to sell one car, but like 50 customers show up to buy the single car that you have. So that means that you have to disappoint 49 customers because you can only sell the car to one person. Now, for anyone who is very good at business, they will say, but Bart, it's the perfect scenario. That's what every seller wants. To have infinite more demand and supply. And I agree. If I was a businessman, I would be very happy. Truth is, it gives me a lot of stress to reject people. It's hard for me to say no to people.
Yes, I'm one of those people who is really kind of a pleaser and tries to appease everyone by saying yes and making promises. And in the past, I've been selling eggs of rare species online. I used to have a business. And one of the things what really made me sad was having to disappoint people constantly. Some people, they take the rejection personally, and you know, I've been blocked by some even people who I consider to be my friends, because I couldn't give them the eggs of a species they wanted. Or sometimes on my channel I upload videos of extremely rare species of moths. Like I breed some really good species on my channel. Sometimes they are actually very hard to get or very rare. And that makes some of my friends thirsty to get them. And some people will go as far as to beg me for it. And when I disappoint them, when I have to say, sorry dude, they're sold out, I couldn't please all of you, then they'll actually be angry at it for me. They'll destroy the friendship over it. They'll block me. I've had people block me that I've been in touch with for years because I couldn't get them eggs of a species they wanted, and that made me very, very sad. It gives me anxiety, and that's why I very rarely nowadays still sell stuff online. In fact, I would be more open to selling moth cocoons and butterfly cocoons on the internet if people were less angry at me when I reject them. Sometimes they'll just really... It rarely happens that people really become hostile, but I've had it happen, I think, at least 3 or 4 times so far. And each time it definitely ruined my day and my week, so I really don't like to make people angry or sad. I don't know why, it's hard for me to deal with that. It's hard for me to deal with people. I've actually been thinking of starting to sell more specimens online, starting to sell more eggs online of species. What do you guys think in the comments? Would that be a good idea or a bad idea? Maybe if I did it, I would only sell them to a select few customers, a few trusted customers, and not to everybody. Maybe I should have like a private mailing list for cocoons and for eggs, and not a public website. Sometimes people are so demanding and unreasonable, or they'll go to your Instagram account and look at a 5-year-old picture and they'll demand that you sell them cocoons of this particular species that you've only raised once in your life. But they don't care. They don't give a fuck. Even if you say no, they'll say that you're a shitty person, a shitty seller. I don't know. I don't handle rejection very well. And I don't like disappointing people. So, and those personality factors, they make me a terrible businessman. Like the pressure and the stress of dealing with people, it makes it hard for me. So in here I really have a lot of eggs. I don't know if you can see it. There's some of them are mixed with the silk. I will separate them later. I have a technique for that. There you go. That's a lot of eggs. I'm actually going to send some of these eggs to a very good friend of mine. A friend that I treasure a lot. So, truth is, if you want to buy eggs of me, or I usually send them to patrons, that's right. This is a shameless self-promotion and trying to advertise my crowdfunding Patreon. You do have to live in a country where it is legal. I don't want to destroy my reputation and I don't want to get my fans into legal trouble. So I cannot ship you stuff in a country where it's illegal. But otherwise, if you are one of my patrons, one of the tiers actually includes receiving eggs from me myself. Some patrons who are in a high tier on my Patreon, they're actually eligible for eggs or cocoons from me myself. So if you're interested in that, you should check that out. So I kind of put selling and trading. I've put it behind a paywall. And I know some people will disagree with that business practice because it's pretty rude to demand people to pay you before you even do business with them in the first place. But that's my only way to overcome like this mental barrier. And that's how I know that everybody that wants to buy things of me is a serious person who likes my content. Because they're already helping crowdfund my work and my channel. So as a reward in return, it's possible for me to send you eggs. Or specimens if you prefer of dead insects. It's like a win-win situation. You help crowdfund my channel, you help crowdfund my work. And I will try to repay you with eggs or cocoons if I can. But make sure it's legal, alright? I really cannot promise to break the law for you. I have a reputation. So these eggs I'm going to send to a very good friend of mine. This is how I'll just send them with the mail. Probably will just tape them to a card. Sorry, I'm coughing. And now I'm going to send the eggs to a friend of mine. Like this postcard, it's of a picture I made myself of an Automeris. Those of you who are curious where I make those cards, well, actually I sell them on Etsy if you are interested. Yes, shameless self-promotion, I know. Anyway, this is how you send eggs. I prefer to use a coin case for them. Well, first I like to individually wrap the coin case with tape before taping it to the letter. So, oops. There you go. And this is going to be ready soon for sending. There you go. I'm not going to show you the part where I actually send them, because I'm going to write something in the letter too, and what I'm going to write in it is private, because it's mail to a friend of mine, which is private business. And also I don't want to expose anybody's address on YouTube. Looks a bit unprofessional, but this is literally how I sent them. Yeah, and hopefully it will make it. This is what the eggs look like. Looks like they have laid a lot of them. And that is the end, ladies and gentlemen. We went from eggs to caterpillars and eventually to moths. We learned a great deal today. It was the first time for me breeding this species. I hope to see you in a future episode. Now this is professional silk farming for you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're new to MothCycles, usually in part 2 we have the discussion. And I teach something about the biology of the species I breed, because I think education is very important on this channel. Everybody needs to learn about these animals and these insects. So let's start some of the discussion. But before that I have to give my rating to myself. Why? I don't know. That's what I decided to do in like the second or third episode, and since then I kept the tradition. Thing is, this species is so easy to breed. It's really hard to mess them up, so yeah. If I had to give myself a rating, it would be a 10 out of 10. Simply because I'm a narcissist and because everything went correctly. It was the first time I raised them. It was very easy. It's a very easy species. So I don't expect to mess up that easily. But still, it's 10 out of 10. We didn't have any significant deaths or problems, so there's that. Discussion. My name is Bart, and I have undoubtedly made moths more popular on the internet, all by myself, by promoting and breeding them in captivity and on social media, and it's working. However, I would be a fool to claim that this is an invention of my own. Breeding moths goes back for at least thousands of years. In particular, the Mulberry silkworm, also known as the silkworm moth or the Mulberry silk moth, is a species that has been raised by humans for what we currently expect to be over 4,000 years old. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, a moth humans have been breeding for over 4,000 years. It's incredible to imagine, and the reason this species deserves to have its own episode. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I breed them in captivity, and now we can discuss the biology of this awesome and interesting species. Here we can see a painting from the 12th century from China, depicting the preparation of silk. Because of its texture and luster, silk rapidly became a popular luxury fabric in the many areas accessible to Chinese merchants. It became a staple source of income for small farmers, and as weaving techniques improved, the reputation of Chinese silk spread so that it became highly desired across the empires of the ancient world. Now, silk, generally speaking, is an umbrella term for any protein fibers spun by invertebrates. But when we talk about commercial silk, specifically, it is the silk produced by various species of moths. Various moth species indeed. There are several species of moths that produce commercial silk, but none of them are as significant as the Mulberry silkworm moth, Bombyx mori. Yes, it's true, there are multiple species of silkmoth, but Bombyx mori was the first of them to be domesticated. And since then, they have always had the largest market share when it comes to silk. The Mulberry silkworm is still responsible for the majority of commercially available silk traded today. It is hard to imagine, but the supposed domestication of the Bombyx mori happened about 5,000 years ago, based on the evidence we have today in the Longshan cultural period. The Longshan culture was a late Neolithic culture in northern China from about 3000 to 1900 BCE. Notable about this culture was their black pottery. Several sources cite that in excavations of tombs from this culture during this period, silk fibers of Bombyx mori have been found preserved, which may be our earliest evidence to date of mulberry silkworm farming. Evidence of silk from this period is known from a few remnant textile fragments recovered from well-preserved tombs. Chinese historical records report silk production and depict garments. So how was the mulberry silkmoth domesticated? Why this species in particular? To answer that, we must explore the past, and I quote directly from this scientific publication: "The earliest tangible archaeological evidence for domesticated silk use in China dates back to around 330 to 2250 BC, as evidenced by remains from Qingshanjiang, a Luangzhou Neolithic site in the Zhejiang province of southern China." I apologize if I didn't pronounce any of that correctly. I do not know Chinese, but I tried. One of the samples from this site, whose radiocarbon dates actually put it around the year 2750 to 100 BC, is of Bombyx mori, woven in a tabby weave. An earlier Neolithic find of silk cocoons is from the Jiangshou culture site, which was around 5000 to 3000 BC, called the Xijin in northern China's Shaanxi province. This early 20th century discovery was that of an artificially cut cocoon of what was reported to be Bombyx mori. But there is no description of how this was determined. Indeed, later analysis of this silk cocoon resulted in its being identified as the Ronditia menasiana, another wild species native to China but not presently existing in the north, rather than Bombyx mori. Now this is interesting. especially the mention of another type of silkworm, Ronditia menasiana, which name is misspelled by the way, gives me a tiny little clue. At the very least, it means that perhaps during the domestication process of Bombyx mori, there were several contenders that were being explored for the production of silk, not just one species, of which Bombyx mori over time perhaps turned out to be the most suitable species, having the most beneficial qualities for captive breeding. Let's examine the other species that was mentioned. Sadly, it appears the binomial name was misspelled, which is unacceptable in a scientific publication in my opinion, so it took me a while to find the actual species. Rondotia mensiana, which in the publication is spelled as Ronditia menasiana, which is incorrect. Rondotia mensiana is interestingly a somewhat close relative of Bombyx mori, but more importantly, they share the same host plant, mulberry tree. Let's focus on mulberry, or plants from the genus of Morus. Yes, this is going to be a long presentation, but believe me, if you watch until the end, everything I'm bringing up right now will come together and make sense in the end. But let's talk about mulberry trees right now. You see, mulberry is a widely cultivated fruit in China. And while it's true that yes, people do eat the berries, the mulberries are also cultivated for another major reason. And that is because Morus is the main host plant of Bombyx mori. Mulberry trees have been cultivated for several thousands of years, not just because of the fruits, but also because of their important role as food plants for the mulberry silkworms and their cultivation. In fact, the leaf powder I was raising the caterpillars on in this video was simply ground up mulberry leaf powder combined with soy proteins. In fact, the scientific name Bombyx mori refers to morus or mulberry. Now one could ask themselves the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did silkworm cultivation happen because they happened to be using the widely cultivated mulberry as their host plant? Or was it the other way around? And did people start cultivating mulberries because it was the host plant of this moth? That is hard to say, but I imagine the plant was cultivated first and the moths came later, considering there were multiple mulberry feeding species from the Bombycidae family that were harvested for their silk early on, as mentioned in the scientific paper earlier in this video. There is a suspicion that Bombyx moths and their relatives may have been useful pests on their cultivated crops that just happened to be edible and just happened to have silk that could be exploited. Silk products and silkworm rearing technologies came to play a critical role in Chinese trade networks and in the interaction of cultures among different countries. By the Han Dynasty, which was about 206 BCE to 9 CE, silk production was so important to international trade that the camel caravan trails used to connect the dynasty with Europe, and they were named the Silk Road. Silk became a prized export for the Chinese. Nobles and kings of foreign lands desired silk and would pay high prices for the cloth. The emperors of China wanted to keep the process for making silk a secret. Anyone caught telling the secret or taking silkworms out of China was put to death. The Chinese managed to keep silk a secret for over 1000 years. Silk cloth was extremely valuable in ancient China. Wearing silk was an important status symbol. At first, only members of the royal family were allowed to wear silk. But later, silk clothing was restricted to only the noble class. Merchants and peasants were not allowed to wear silk. Silk was even used as money during some ancient Chinese dynasties. But secrets do not last forever. Monks from the Byzantine Empire managed to smuggle some silkworm eggs out of the country. They hid the eggs inside of their bamboo walking sticks, according to the folklore. But the Silk Road and massive silk economy and the massive wealth brought to those who knew the secret behind silkworm farming all generated a lot of interest. And slowly, through the Silk Road, silkworm technology began to spread worldwide. Silkworm technology spread to Korea and Japan around 200 BCE. Later, even Europe was introduced to silk products through the Silk Road network. But the secret of silk production remained unknown outside of Eastern Asia until the 3rd century CE. Later, silkworm farming became much more widespread. But for thousands of years, the Chinese had a monopoly on the production of silk and guarded their secrets of sericulture very closely. But later in history, silk farming would occur in the Middle East, in Europe, Indochina, India, and very much later even Africa. Although synthetic fabrics and perhaps even cotton have certainly replaced silk as a fabric in many ways, silk farming is not a thing of the past. Sericulture is very much alive, and the silk market global value is still estimated to be around $21.45 billion in value. And of all the silk produced worldwide, over 80% of all commercial silk is still extracted from Bombyx mori. Certainly this is a species that has tremendous economic value. Here is a map of the modern silk production, which includes all species of silkmoth in general, but Bombyx mori still makes up the majority of them. The darker blue, the more silk is produced. Big players are China, India, interestingly also Brazil and Thailand. Smaller producers are Vietnam, Japan, Turkey, and more East Asian regions. 90% of all silkworm farms and all silk production occurs in Asia, specifically in China and India. Bombyx mori were domesticated around 5,000 years ago and are entirely reliant on humans for their survival. They are very much a domestic animal, like all other livestock. Silkworms are often reared in shelves, because the caterpillars are terrible at climbing vertical surfaces and prefer to remain on the floor of the container, especially if there are tasty mulberry leaves to eat. The optimal temperature of this species is between 20 and 28 degrees Celsius, but they are very robust and will even survive lower and higher temperatures than that as well. Traditionally, first the worms are steamed to kill them, after which the cocoons are placed in hot water to loosen the tightly intertwined fibers. Yes, they are often boiled or steamed alive. Which, by the way, doesn't bother me much personally. Despite that, for people who dislike killing, there's also cruelty-free alternatives available online. And each of these filaments are between 600 to 900 meters long. And once the final silk threads are woven together, the silk can then be used to produce fine garments. Of course, not all the moths are killed though. A small percentage is allowed to survive to continue the next generation of moths. At warm temperatures they can be reared to cocoons quite fast, in about a month's time. At colder temperatures they can be reared as well, but their development will take much longer. The eggs of this moth are another interesting case. There appear to be multiple strains of Bombyx mori with differing degrees of volatinism. What does this mean? It's mainly about the hibernation of the eggs. You see, the eggs of Bombyx mori require a cold hibernation in order to successfully hatch in some cases. This would make them univoltine, or in other words, a species that can only produce one generation a year. However, in some strains of Bombyx mori, the eggs can immediately hatch without any kind of hibernation whatsoever, producing a second generation or a bivoltine strain. But some can even be continuously brooded, producing 3 or more generations before hibernating. This is why this species is called polyvoltine. The hibernation habits of the eggs appear to be variable per strain and per geographic origin, possibly adapted to the local microclimate. Traditionally, the eggs were overwintered outdoors or in some cases even in ice caves, such as in Japan, which acted as a kind of natural refrigerator. DNA evidence suggesting that the silkworm domestication process may have begun as long ago as 7,500 years ago and continued to around 4,000 years ago. That's mind-blowing to imagine that they may have been domesticated as early as over 7,000 years ago. Wow. That is crazy. And at that time, silkworms experienced a bottleneck, losing much of its nucleotide diversity. Archaeological evidence does not currently support such a long domestication history, but the bottleneck date is similar to dates proposed for initial domestication of food crops. It is currently unknown which species the Bombyx mori is actually derived from, but most conceivably it is thought that they are descendants of a wild silkmoth named Bombyx mandarina. Bombyx mandarina is a wild species of mulberry silkmoth that can be found in China as well, and it feeds on mulberry. The origin of the domestic silkmoth Bombyx mori is enigmatic. It has also been suggested that it is the survivor of an extinct species which diverged from the ancestors of Bombyx mandarina millions of years ago, and not actual Bombyx mandarina themselves. The main problem is that the effects of domestication on Bombyx mori have been so strong that even with molecular clocking it is very hard to trace back their origins. In rare cases, these species are even able to hybridize and create fertile offspring, further cementing the evidence that at the very least mandarina and mori are very closely related species. I would love to make this hybrid for a YouTube episode someday. I hope it happens. Interesting to notice is that due to increased popularity in the pet trade, people are developing new strains of mulberry silkmoths that are made to look more appealing. Even black caterpillars with zebra stripes, orange ones, caterpillars with bumps, with dots, with spots and a lot of unusual variations have emerged, which makes breeding the moths even more fun and more interesting. Yes, all these caterpillars are cool strains of Bombyx mori. People have even gone as far as to create strains that spin colored silk. Yellow cocoons, pink cocoons, orange and green cocoons are all available. Those who are lucky to find eggs of a colored cocoon strain are in for a colorful surprise for sure. Oops, the vegetarians of my channel will not like to see this. But another fun fact is that the pupa of this species are perfectly edible and are in fact eaten in many countries and cultures, considering they are a mere byproduct of silk farming. Cocoons are typically boiled alive, and after harvesting the silk, this leaves a bunch of cooked pupa that can also be fried or eaten. It should be noted that these pupa are an excellent and sustainable source of animal proteins and are reportedly even to be tasty. Typically, they are boiled, stir-fried, steamed or roasted. Yummy! Would you taste them? There is good news for the vegetarians among us though. Yes, the vegetarians among us. There is good news thankfully, and that is that silk harvesting techniques also exist in which the animals don't have to get killed. Cruelty-free silk is also available online in some occasions, just for the people who disagree with killing and want to buy silk from a killing-free farm. Interesting to note is that silk consists of two proteins mainly. Silk consists of 70 to 80% fibroin and about 20 to 30% sericin. Fibroin being the structural center of the silk and sericin being the gum coating around the fibers and that allows them to stick to each other. The sericin actually isn't used during the silk production, and through a process called degumming, only the fibroin silk fibers are left and not the sericin gum coating. Think about it the next time you wear silk. These creatures were likely responsible for it after all. And silk is a breathable fabric and a natural temperature regulator. Silk helps the body retain heat in cold weather, while excess heat is expelled in warm weather, helping your body maintain a comfortable natural temperature. Silk is hypoallergenic, and it does not attract dust mites, and is a natural fungal repellent. And it's all thanks to Bombyx mori, honestly. These creatures have an incredible history, intertwined with archaeology and human cultural history, and are one of the only fully domesticated species of insects. I hope you have learned something new today about the original silk moth. Interesting to note is that the Bombycidae, the wild true silk moths, contain hundreds of species, and yet they are rarely ever raised by any hobbyist at all. That makes me sad. I wonder why. Some of them are quite colorful and charming and are interesting to compare to Bombyx mori. Some from the genus of Bombyx can even hybridize with Bombyx mori to create wonderful variants. It's probably the fact that they are small which makes them less popular. Bombyx mori is extremely popular in captivity, but that is more or less the only species of this family that is raised frequently by anyone. Sometimes people breed Bombyx mandarina too, but that is also more rare. I would love to show you the life cycle of more Bombycidae species on this channel, including the wild ones. But for that, I need to be really lucky, and someone who has to offer me eggs from wild species, which are rarely offered and often exclusive material. That was it, ladies and gentlemen. I think I've covered all the basics. This channel cannot continue without your help. Ladies and gentlemen, my show is demonetized by YouTube. That means that whenever I upload any video, I do not make a single dollar from it, not a single cent. YouTube does not pay me money, which essentially means I am entertaining thousands of people for free. But there's good news. I have something called crowdfunding. Please let me tell you about it right now.
Wow, that's a lot of silk, isn't it? Enough for the second generation. Such a beautiful result. Awesome. Guys, if you enjoy anything moth related, make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. I'm going to upload a lot of episodes of this series, MothCycles, pretty soon. So I hope that you are excited. I've been working really hard to produce them. Really hard. There is one thing that we must address though. A long time ago, YouTube demonetized my channel completely. That means when I upload a video on YouTube, like this one, I don't get a single dollar for it from YouTube. If I get millions and millions of views, I don't make any money from that at all. That sucks, because my videos, they take a lot of time to produce and a lot of effort and a lot of budget. One episode of MothCycles is hundreds of dollars in time and effort and labor and materials. These things, for example, this is the artificial food I use to raise them. It's powder. You can mix it with hot water and it's like instant food for the caterpillars. This stuff costs a couple of dollars each container, unfortunately. So making this kind of video is expensive. And because of that I have to remind people that this is a crowdfunded channel. Everything you see on this channel, ooh, there's a lot of wind. Everything you see on this channel is 100% crowdfunded. All the money I make from this channel comes from the contributions and donations of my viewers. So if you like the channel and you would like to see it continue, make sure you subscribe to my Patreon or contribute to PayPal or Ko-Fi. There's many options available to donate in the description. I'm sorry for begging on the internet. I don't like doing it. I think it's very annoying that I have to do it. But it's the only way for me to operate this channel. I haven't found an alternative yet. I don't have any sponsors. I don't have any collaborations with companies. And YouTube is not helping me because YouTube, they put me out of the monetization program. That sucks. So that makes it hard to make videos like these that take a lot of effort to produce. Sorry for the internet begging. There is some good news though. Recently I have found what I would like to say an investor. I call it an investor, but in reality it's like a super fan. His first name is Rob. And Rob basically sent me a financial contribution that is so big that it's enough to sustain my work for months. It's probably enough to make like 10 episodes of MothCycles. And this is one of those episodes that I actually produced using Rob's massive financial contribution. So for that we're going to thank him. Rob, tada, we have the t-shirt on today. Rob, the myth, the man, the legend. Rob, if you're watching this video, thank you so much for your massive contribution. I am not allowed to disclose the exact amount to my viewers, because we have to respect Rob's privacy as well. I don't want to reveal too much details about him and how he helps me. But let's just say that he paid for all this stuff, all the food I used to feed my caterpillars, and much more than that. So thanks to him I also have a new GoPro, for example. And for that I'm very happy. As a demonetized YouTuber, it's very hard for me to get some budget to make awesome videos. And of course, the better my budget, the more awesome my videos are going to be. That's how it works, unfortunately. That's capitalism for you. If you want a real cool stuff, exciting stuff, breed very rare or colorful species, those are expensive. And as somebody that is not paid by YouTube, yeah, it's hard. Thank you, Rob, for your contribution. Thank you, Rob, for your dedication to the show. I would also like to thank every other one of my sponsors on Patreon and PayPal who have sent me money or donated in the past, or through Ko-Fi, for example. I'm very grateful for all of that. And it's only thanks to you guys that this episode is right here. MothCycles is for me 100% impossible to make if people did not help me out financially. This is always hard for me to do. It flusters me a little bit. I'm not really that good in begging. I know it kind of hurts, but it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is what it is. Demonetized insect channel. So, and it turns out I have some artificial food left. So I may even order a few more eggs for a future episode. What about a hybrid Bombyx mori? That would be cool. Thank you guys. Goodbye. Hope to see you in the next video. Now we're going to play the credits. And in the credits what we do is... well, in the credits we show the names of all my loyal patrons who helped me make this episode because I'm demonetized. Bye bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching the show. This is Bart Coppens. And life gets overwhelming sometimes, you know. It's not easy being a YouTuber trying to make it on a huge competitive platform like this. It's hard work and it's stressful work. Life overwhelms me sometimes, you know. It's been overwhelming me lately. I just hope that all of this is going to pay off someday. So my way to cope with all this stress is to sneak out in the middle of the night and eat junk food in the middle of the night here in my favorite little spot in a city near me. It calms me down. And I decided to make it the credits of this video. So enjoy it, ladies and gentlemen. Bart Coppens eating McDonald's in the middle of the night because he's crazy and a weirdo and all by himself. And because it's good scenery to show in the credits. Thank you for all the patrons who helped me crowdfund the show. All of you helped me continue this operation. Without all of you I would be nothing. So your names are going to be displayed. Thank you very much and see you in the next upload.
And now we will play the names of my honorable and loyal patrons. The people who are responsible for me being able to make this video. In particular, I would like to thank Hazen B for pledging $65 per month to my Patreon, a tier so high that it warrants her own special shout out. Thank you, Hazen, you are truly of great help. She asked me to show her name on top of a hickory horn devil, so here it is. Your custom shout out.